committee has finally given its verdict, suspending Rajasthan Royals and Chennai Super Kings for 2 years. To discuss the verdict and everything related to it, I have Ayaz Memon with me. Hello Ayaz.
Hi Nikhila.
First all, what do you think of the verdict?
I think it's a landmark decision by by Justice Lodha. I mean, there has been some argument by some people that this is an example of judicial overreach, that perhaps the brief has been extended by the justice, but I don't think so. I think fundamentally what he's done is held up a mirror to the BCCI about its own rules and regulations and past decisions or verdict which are in conformity with what the BCCI should have done but didn't do. So in that sense, I think he has scored a point. A, that the BCCI is not contesting it, they've accepted it in toto. The other is he's actually busted the kind of belief that the BCCI had that it was a private society which could work in its own rules, in its own ambit, and it didn't owe any allegiance or any kind of accountability to anybody else.
True.
I think what Justice Lodha has done is he's put the fans as the paramount stakeholders.
Yeah. Were you surprised by it? Did you think?
To be honest, I was.
Yeah.
Because given the kind of we've had the run up in the way the BCCI has handled itself or mishandled itself and how the rest of the world has reacted to it, I thought perhaps that CSK and Rajasthan Royals would get away with a fine, a very punitive fine, but certainly not a suspension. This came as a surprise.
Okay, so we also have Mr. Saad Jung, former cricketer and writer.
Fantastic. Yes.
Let's see what he has to say.
Saad there?
Saad?
Hi Nikhila.
Hello sir.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Jung. So first off, what do you think of the verdict? If I could just get your opinion on this.
Oh, I think it is fast breaking, and I completely agree with everything that Ayaz has said. Now listen, you've got to understand where Indian cricket has come. Indian cricket franchisees have bought to book, where they therefore distribute bought to the game. The players have bought distribute to the game, and that has been proven. But till date, not a single executive has ever been proven to be to have bought distribute to the game, and this is where the spirit of what the Lodha committee is saying is going to transform Indian cricket. What they're going to do is they're going to make the executive committee, which has been responsible for the complete failures of Indian cricket, they're going to make them answerable and responsible, and that's going to redefine Indian cricket, and I think put us on the right path finally. Ayaz and I, when we were part of the game at those times, we used to be professionals. We used to play the game for the love of the game. Today there was, I mean, for heaven's sake, there was no money in it. There was only romance. There were no drinks. I mean, you never got a drink. Not that I drank, but even the people who did, there was no money to buy a drink. There was no free sex. But today, everything for that 16, 17-year-old is available. There's so much of skills available. That Lodha committee, which has come now, has put the spirit of the game in the proper perspective, and you see the life-defining change that will happen in Indian cricket, and I think it's about time.
Yeah, so the BCCI has just today announced a 4-member working committee to further to further look into their verdict.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think the future holds? What's the next step that?
So, Nikhila, I think they've asked for a 6-week period to kind of lay out a roadmap. A lot of people have said that this is just buying time and it's more prevarication on the part of the BCCI or the governing council. I wouldn't, I can understand the cynicism where it comes from, but I think they are justified in asking for this 6-week buffer because look, it's a right royal mess, and to come out of that mess by knee-jerk reactions is going to make the mess worse. So I think 6-week period is fine, but I would have been happier if the working group had included an external kind of
Rajiv
entity.
Shukla,
It's the same old Rajiv Shukla and Anurag Thakur and so on and so forth. There's 4 members from the BCCI. When you want to clean up, get an independent entity in who has some stature and who can also help in not only resolving the crisis but also creating a perception in the wide world that the BCCI is really out to do something constructive. I think they perhaps lapsed in that aspect.
Yeah. So, Saad, what do you think? What happens to the 2 teams now and the players?
I think Ayaz has said everything, but the thing that I would have wanted the BCCI to have done, not that they've ever done anything that I wanted, but what I would have liked to have heard are just the right words, that yes, we are in conformity with what the Lodha committee is saying and thinking. We would like to change the spirit of the game. We would go back and bring cricket forward, and therefore we are putting this committee up in order to tell you people that we are redefining for ourselves certain norms within the executive committee, the performance of the executive committee, answerability. We ourselves will be looking into it, and we will be coming up with a more of a transparent sort of a plan for you, which we will work out over 2 or 3 years. Also, the power to investigate. We would like to give more power to investigation to our own BCCI investigation agencies, which are completely toothless right now. They're completely powerless. At the same time, they must, in order to put in more confidence within the fans, especially like all three of us, they should have addressed upon the fact of the sleaze of the IPL. What has happened to the match fixing, the betting, and the sex, and all that comes with it. I would have expected a reaction saying that we are putting this committee up, and this committee will be looking at all these issues, including the scandals at the state level. For heaven's sake, there are 199 cases filed in the Hyderabad Cricket Association. Today, nobody from the BCCI or the ICC is looking at it, because if they do look at it and if they do go act upon it, that's the end of a lot of executives. And that, unfortunately, has not happened in BCCI, but that, fortunately, will now happen in the BCCI because of the Supreme Court coming in.
Ayaz, what do you think? Do you think it will fix the bigger issues that the sport is facing right now?
I'm hopeful. Look, what is the choice? I mean, the BCCI or Indian cricket finds itself on the brink, on the precipice. There's been a lot of massive erosion in the credibility of people, of teams, of players, and the whole establishment. Now, from here, if you can't lift yourself up or make serious efforts to lift yourself up, then I'm afraid that the game will be perhaps irrevocably damaged. So I don't think they have too much choice there, but they need to show some, not vision certainly, but also a sense of urgency. So I buy the 6-week period, but it shouldn't become a 6-month period and then a 6-year period and then nothing happens.
And Saad, speaking of the fans, the CSK fan base, the Rajasthan Royal fan base, they're two very strong fan bases. So going forward, just in terms of the sport, what do you think is the correct step that the BCCI can take now? What happens to the two teams? You think
the sports is one. Cricket finally in the history, for the first time in the history of the BCCI, it's cricket that is one. And I don't understand this issue of we should look after the players, or we should look after the team, or we should look after the franchisees. No, absolutely not. They've been caught. They've been part of a sleaze. None of them opened their mouth. Not even the players. I'm very sorry. I mean, we've all been players, and Ayaz has been part of the game for so long. Why didn't they open their mouth and come forward and say, listen, cricket is being sullied. Please, for heaven's sake, someone come in. There's a mess over here. None of them. So I'm saying that even the players are responsible. The players need to be investigated. Players need to be cleared before they come back into the system, because you can't just throw out the top. I mean, of course, that there is a lot of, there's going to be a ripple effect. There's going to be, damage which happens in any war. So I think cleanup of cricket is most essential. If that means that these two teams go, if that means that 30 players have to go, so be it. Because I think 2 other teams will come in, and I think after 2 years there will be another 10 teams. So IPL is not going to suffer. A few players or a few administrators or a few business will suffer. That's just par for the course as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
in fact, if I had the dosh, Nikhila, I would actually go and buy an IPL franchise now, because this is a bear market. You can get a good, I mean, I'm just being a little facetious. I think the big issue for the IPL, I mean, the governing council is, yes, they need 8 teams to make next year's or next season's tournament, worthwhile for everybody. At what price point will they sell a new franchise is going to be a big issue, because you don't want to sell it so cheap that the existing franchises get upset, and you can't price it so high that nobody else wants to come in. So it's a bit of a tightrope walk there, but I completely endorse what Saad has been saying about, look, there will be some collateral damage. This is a major crisis, and the players, nobody has been banned or suspended. When there's a next auction, the players will be absorbed, maybe not in their own teams, but somewhere else. Maybe they will choose not to be absorbed and come back and play for their original franchises. That is their choice. But I think, look, when something as serious as this has happened, we have to keep this, emotionalism aside and say, is the sport going to benefit or not?
Okay, great. So, thank you, Saad.
Let me just add to what Ayan
go ahead.
Okay, now he said something really important, and I've heard nearly 8 or 10 people, moneyed people actually come forward and say this, that it's now time to buy another team. Now, whoever's saying that there has been temporary damage or setback to the IPL is completely wrong. Actually, for the first time in the history of the IPL, there's been a confidence building process which has taken place, And actually, the public or the investor in the franchisee today has the confidence to come back and say that, I want to be part of this. And I completely endorse what Mia is saying. It is time now that the right people come in, and the BCCI should also vet who the franchisee is. I mean, you don't really want a scandalous franchisee, because a lot of our franchisees are getting caught in scandals. We need to see whether they've been good with their own people, with their own companies, have they been moral, and then bring them into the gentleman's game.
Okay, so thank you so much, Saad. Both Saad and Ayaz agreeing that this is a step forward for the sport, for the good of the sport.
Yes.
And speaking of the sport, Ashes, the second test, got over in 4 days.
What a turnaround by Australia.
What a turnaround
by Australia. I mean, they were helped to an extent by Michael Clarke winning the toss, so he got first use of the pitch.
Do you think this has become a very bad first Ashes?
I think it's, in a sense, that's the way England would like it, because they don't think they have the bowling firepower to match Australia, so they're preparing flat tracks and and think that they can bat out the crisis, and maybe if they get a chance like they did in the first test, they could go on to win. But
so the toss has become very important.
Has become important, but in this case, I don't think the pitch deteriorated. It's just that Australia just became stronger and stronger and better as the match progressed. So if you run up a score of almost 600, then the other team is always under pressure. Only one team can lose from there, and certainly it wasn't Australia. And I think the English resistance just kind of crumbled. You must hand it, I think, apart from the double century made by Steve Smith and Chris Rogers making 170 plus, I think the credit must be here given to the Australian bowlers on this, as they call Pata track.
3 wickets.
Mitchell Johnson 3 in either innings. Hazelwood
again 3 in the second innings.
Mitchell Starc and Mitch Marsh, who came in for Shane Watson and picked up crucial wickets. I think the bowlers did a fantastic job, and I think, look, the Aussies were smarting after the first test defeat, and they've come back out to prove a point that they are the best team in the world.
So a long break between the second and third test, and 1-1. Great to look forward to the next test. T20s, going from test cricket to T20. India losing, does that ring any warning bells for you, or?
Not really. I mean, look, it would have been a happy note to end the tour on a win. It didn't happen. I have always maintained that T20 is, the shorter the game, the more level the playing field, and then you'll find more upsets in T20 than in any other format. So Zimbabwe beating India is not earth-shattering news to me. But yes, it's something that the Indian team must consider, what they could have done better. I think they perhaps got a little impatient in the run chase, and it wasn't a mighty run chase. They wanted to perhaps get over it and done with it quickly. 145 to chase, not very taxing, but they stumbled.
They also collapsed in the end.
Absolutely.
But maybe the Indian cricket team did collapse, but the team that didn't collapse over the weekend was the Davis Cup team. Our Indian of the week, Yuki Bhamri, for his 2 single rubber win, which has ensured that India is in the World Group playoff.
And is under a lot of pressure, because after we had lost the doubles,
we were down 1-2.
1-2.
And he
so
came
you tell us a little bit about Yuki Bhamri. Come on.
So he's this 20-year-old, and coincidentally, he was a school junior in DPS.
Your school junior?
Yeah, I mean, I left that school, but I knew him since then. And I think he played amazing on the weekend. That's some of the best tennis I've seen him play in the last 6 months. Under a lot of pressure, straight sets victory, exactly what we wanted.
So my question to you, Nikhila, is he's 23. You find internationally tennis players having already arrived on the scene, so to speak, by the time they are 20 or thereabouts. So what do you see going ahead for Yuki Bhamri?
So he showed great promise as a junior, winning a Grand Slam as a junior. And right now, I think if he can just sustain himself in the top 100, if he can just break through the top 100 and sustain himself there, he's been playing challengers consistently. So that's the next step forward for him, at this stage. Somdev, I think he's past his prime. Now he's 28. So I think he has.
But still very fit.
Still, played a 5-setter.
5-setter.
Lost it eventually, but even he won on Sunday. So that was great. And we have the Ashes going on, and then in tennis we'll have Australia versus Great Britain in the semi-finals of the Davis Cup in September.
Oh, fantastic.
What a victory for Australia. Leighton Hewitt stepping up.
And how old is he now?
He's same as 34. He's
34, like
a year older than Federer. That era. And he stepped up, because on the first day, both the youngsters, Kyrgios and Kokkinakis, lost. They were in deep trouble. Sam Groth, Leighton Hewitt came back next day, won the doubles rubber. Both of them played the singles rubber.
Yeah.
And it's only the 9th victory in the Davis Cup where a team has come back from a 2-0 deficit.
Correct.
So they're set up against the Murray brothers. Murray brothers winning all 3 of their matches to ensure that they're through to the semi-finals. And the other semi-final would be between Argentina and Belgium. Belgium winning 5-0 over depleted Canada. No Raonic, no Pospisil. So they won comfortably and they're going to host Argentina.
So a lot of tennis to look forward to.
That's an interesting semi-final lineup to look forward to. And that'll be in September, but we'll be tracking everything else that happens. And as we say goodbye, here's a clip of the Indian team celebrating after the win in New Zealand. Thank you.